I sound like a real fucking crank, don't I? Real fucking crank.
Well, tell me about.
The Zook story?
No, no, not
Blood
that.
on the
But
crotch?
I don't think we've even gotten to the fact that you belong to a band. You are a leader of a band, and something you do as a hobby,
Yeah.
or how would you refer to what you do?
Avocation in which money is spent and money is rarely ever made at all. Uh, called the Ugly. I have a musical group called the Ugly Janitors of America. It's billed as John Trubee and the Ugly Janitors of America.
Why?
This is listed in the promo that you've read. I use the word ugly due to a number of I mean, everybody in life is rejected, and when you're rejected, you're pissed off and want to kill people. However, I tend to brood about these things way beyond their significance, to the extent where I would incorporate it into the name of my band, so that those people that do reject me without thinking about it and thinking about what a wonderful, nice person I am, will have their snub of me smeared back in their fucking faces. You know, you call me ugly, you reject me, you don't take me seriously. Okay, call me fucking ugly. I'll get a band together and fucking smash it right back in your fucking face, you fucking ninny wimp, dipshit. Don't ever underestimate me. You know, most of you motherfuckers that would not give me a chance, that would reject me when I go to apply for a job, you stupid girls that put your noses in the air when I go up to say hi, you people are idiots. You don't know what a fine human being you just spiritually killed.
You sound like you could be violent if pressed hard enough.
A lot of these people deserve violence. They deserve to have their faces smashed in lava.
But are you going to be the one?
This great line in Bukowski. There was some lady in this Bukowski poem. This lady was bitching at him. Some lady coming out of a store screaming at him, and he was snapping pictures of her store from it, and she didn't like it. And he said the problem with these people is they've never had bombs dropped on them, and nobody ever told their moms to shut up. And that's the basic thing. People in this culture are just, a gross generalization, just flitty dorks. You know, they have no depth to them. They're a bunch of TV boob dildos. So what's the question? I forgot it already.
There was none.
Oh, am I psych? Yeah.
No. Could you be violent?
No, because if I was violent, I might hurt somebody. If I hurt somebody, I might be put in jail, and that would encroach too much on my freedom.
But really, I mean, to be honest, you're not the violent type.
No, I couldn't physically hurt people.
No. Knowing you as long as I have.
Unless somebody came up to
You've been more on the butt end of things rather than
the... Yeah, right. That's right.
Unfortunately.
So you say, I don't know, perhaps.
Well, as I have known you.
Right.
In summer camp.
I should have fought back.
You probably forgot all the bad images, remembrances.
Craig Larson hitting me in the balls. I remember that very well. Where did I put my pen?
You don't remember the boot being thrown at you to wake you in the morning?
Well, who did that? My trainer?
Craig.
Craig, yeah, that asshole. Again, who was he? He was one of the people in charge. What could I do? You know, I couldn't fight against the owner's son. But yeah, I've learned that if you do assert yourself, these people won't fuck with you again, because a lot of these people that do aggressive physical things to you are basically cowards and won't fuck with you if they know that you'll fight back. And of course, I never did fight back.
So how do you know that?
One of my life's regret. Anybody that ever bullied me and pushed around, I just should have socked in the fucking mouth. You know? I really should have done that shit. It's easy,
that includes somebody very close to you, doesn't it? But we shouldn't get into that on film, should we?
I don't think so. It's not necessary. It might contaminate bad vibes.
Well, it's up to you. You can say whatever you wish.
Well, I've decided not to. No reason for it.
All right. No reason to get at the root of John Trubee's so-called neuroses.
Psychosis.
Perhaps.
Did you want to hear the funny story about the troubadour?
Yeah, sure.
No, okay. In the early 80s, I was in the Zoogs Rift band, and he put together this clever poster for a club date in Hollywood, or somewhere in the area, at the Troubadour Club.
Here, would you hold that up again?
He took that picture of these mummies out of Hustler magazine and then I think Velox did, or blew it up, did something with it, and then prepared it. He has a nice touch with the graphic art preparation. We played at the Troubadour, and I was wearing these yellow swim trunks. And before we went on, I poured some fake blood all over my crotch. It looked like my dick was cut off, and there was blood seeping all over my legs and so forth. And Zoogs was talking to some 19-year-old girl who was a would-be rock journalist, and she quietly said to him, "I think your bass player, there's something wrong with his crotch. What's wrong with his crotch?" And Zoogs knew what was going on. He knew that I was just preparing to go on stage with this blood dripping down my legs and right, all over my crotch area. And he said to the girl, "Well, if he notices it, then he'll take care of it, but I'm not going to bother with it." And then it's great getting on a stage in front of people, wearing these short pants, and there's blood right where your dick is supposed to be, and that's very fun and entertaining and exhibitionistic. And again, it's like saying, fuck you dummies, fuck you idiots, and trying to upset them a little bit. And also, it's something that they don't expect, so it's humorous and self-indulgent. So that's that big deal.
Oh, so nothing really came about.
No, not really. That's the end of the story.
All right.
Okay, Brian?
Now it is.
Okay, what the fuck?
Okay, what I would like to know is the history of your musical development from the time you first picked up an instrument, if you don't mind. Just a little background.
Okay. I had a great grandfather in Germany who was a concert pianist, and sometimes it's thought that interest or sensitivity to music is genetic. I wasn't aware of that at the time, but when I was a little kid, my mom forced me to take piano lessons, starting when I was about 6 or 7, and I hated it. I hated being forced to practice each day, and I resented the shit out of it. It was terrible, and I didn't have any musical talent as far as playing piano or anything like that. You can learn it mechanically, all that. And it's almost like a mechanical skill. So anyway, it made me miserable. I hated being forced to do something against my will. It wasn't that it was a musical instrument. I mean, that didn't bother me, but I just hated being forced to do anything. I hate bullies and being bullied into stuff. Even if it's my mom, I resent it. So anyway, after a couple of years of doing that, she finally relented and didn't force me to take piano anymore. But then I took trumpet for about a year, because then she harped on me to keep on doing music somehow. And then around age 12, 13, age 10, 11, 12, I was reading a lot of science fiction. I used to like to read a lot. I used to hide from my family and read, because it was unpleasant for me to be around the rest of my family and to be around other people. So I used to read. H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, science fiction type stuff. Isaac Asimov, although he was very boring. Some Ray Bradbury, but then I got tired of Ray Bradbury writing about these sentimental childhood memory type shit. And then, this was the late 60s, I used to enjoy hearing Beatle music on the radio, so I read Hunter Davies' biography of the Beatles, and I was real fascinated by the whole story of the Beatles and how they were able to make money with their music, and it was a fascinating, fun story, and I got real fascinated with it. So that year, September of 1969, I went out and I wanted to buy Magical Mystery Tour, but I couldn't find it in the record bin at a music store. So I got Sgt. Pepper instead, and I was disappointed. And I went home and played it with my dad's stereo, and I just fell in love with it. I loved the sound of it. I loved the music. It was fascinating. Imagine being a kid, starting to get into the Beatles, and you buy Sgt. Pepper, and that's the first album you ever buy. What a mind-blowing experience. And I just fell in love with listening to the Beatles and listening to music. And about half a year later, and I remember the specific day, July 7th, 1970, my mom took me to a music store, Farrington's, out on Penn Circle near Princeton, New Jersey, and we rented a nylon string guitar, which cost $40. I think we rented it before we bought it. And I started taking lessons, various chord patterns and so forth, and started to learn how to play guitar, and bought music books and, played the chords and all that sort of stuff. And about a year later, my dad took me to New York with one or two of my brothers, and I bought an Yamaha FG 180 steel string guitar that was a step up from the nylon string guitar, and they played that for a while. And then about a year after that, in 1972, I went and bought a Fender Stratocaster. My mom paid for half of it. I was 15 at the time. My dad took my brother Jay and I to New York, and we browsed around music stores, and it was extremely exciting for me to walk in there and look at these instruments and actually see one of these electric guitars in the flesh that I'd just seen pictures of before. And so anyway, I had the Fender Stratocaster and just practiced it religiously. I just loved playing it. I loved the sound. It gave me something to do. It was a hobby. And instead of reading books all the time, I'd practice guitar. Again, I didn't like to be around people. I don't like to, was never very sociable or popular, so just practiced guitar and took guitar lessons. And then one day my guitar teacher took a guitar and started playing it himself, and he discovered that the strings that were strung on my guitar were way too thick for electric guitar. On electric guitars you have generally thin strings, for rock guitars, the Ernie Ball Super Slinkies, that are easy to bend up. They're easy to bend, and he discovered that I had flat wound, super thick jazz type strings on there, and I was having problems bending the strings. And since I was so used to bending these big coils, with my fingers up like that, when I put on the light gauge strings, I'd bend up the strings to outrageous, and I'd play it over, and so I used to practice a lot of practicing guitar and playing, it's so out of tune. I mean, this guitar has been through hell. I have to tune it up every 5 seconds. It needs a lot of work, which costs hundreds of dollars, which I can't afford.
Well, go on.
So, I started playing with a couple guys from Lawrenceville School, a guy named John Kramer, who's now dead. He died of a drug overdose a number of years up at some school in Vermont, but he was the first guy I was ever in a band with. And we really didn't have that much in common, and he had some drug problems and some various things, but I just enjoyed playing in a band. And one of my first musical memories was, I forget the name of the band, but it consisted of a guy named Paul Miller, and we used to rehearse up at some house, and he had a nice sister who was real quiet. She would hang around in the basement. And a guy named David Trimble, who was a drummer, and John Kramer, and that was the group, and then me on guitar. And one day we were moving all the stuff down to David Trimble's house to practice. And Paul Miller and David Trimble had a girlfriend, and Paul Miller was trying to get in her pants or something like that. There was some weird fallout. But anyway, we all moved down to David Trimble's house, Trimble, to rehearse. And David was being antsy and didn't want to practice after we went to the hell of going down to his place. And I was real anxious to practice. I just wanted to play all the time. I wanted to play music. And they found that Dave left his snare drum up at Paul Miller's house. And it was about a mile or so away. And this was, October, November. It was real cold. The field was frozen and shit like that. So I walked back in freezing cold weather across frozen cornfields in New Jersey just to go pick up a snare drum at the other guy's house to bring it back so we could practice. It was so cold that we had these space heaters, around, these electric space heaters, and your fingers are frozen cold, and David Trimble is, being snotty. That's a long story for nothing.
Well, yeah, okay. This is your first pickup band.
Yeah,
band.
Right. We played one dance at some junior high school.
What was your name?
I forget. I got paid about $10, I think. And we played all along the Watchtower and House of the Rising Sun. Stupid songs like that.
I'm sorry. I was just stretching my fingers.
Okay, fine. And then at Lawrenceville, I ran into a guy named Jim Nevius, and I didn't get to know him that well until about the second or third year that I was there. And he sort of had the reputation of being a weirdo and a hippie and a wild man. He had long hair. And one time we were talking about music, and he knew that I played guitar. And I think we were in a music appreciation course or something together. And in the fall of 1973, he said, well, I have a band together. Do you want to audition for it? And I said, sure, I'd love to. And he said, well, I'll call you. And of course, like most adults I know nowadays, when they say they're going to call you, they never do. But I wanted to be in his band very badly. So I called him, and I went over to his house in Yardley, Pennsylvania, and we rehearsed. It was a neat band. Mike Osborne on drums, and Daryl DuBrow on bass, Chris Leadham on drums, and Mark Baldwin on bass and keyboards. And it was fun. I had the time of my life. The musicianship was better than I'd known previously, and the guys were just a tight-knit group of musicians, so I started rehearsing with them regularly. That's the cat. There's a cat that jumps on the shift buttons.
Yeah. What was the name of this?
Gloop Knox and the Stick People was the name of this group. And from then on, I'd go over to Yardley, Pennsylvania to rehearse with Nevius's band, starting around age 16, 17, 18. I'd try to go over to, I had a car at the time. My dad lent me his car. And every weekend when I wasn't in school, I'd go over to Nevius's house because didn't want to stay around home, because if I was around home, my parents would make me do all these chores and clean up, and I'd do a lot of homework and shit like that. And it was just oppressive being at home that time. So I made an effort to get out of the house and get over to Nevius's house each weekend, and we'd rehearse for a while, and he'd go off and do other stuff at night, but I just practice and rehearse and hang around and stuff like that. And that was fun. That was a time of my life. That was great. And then what's the next question?
Well, let's take a little break.
Okay. Oh no.
John Trubee at work at the hardware store.
Yeah.
The nuts and bolts section. Oh, tell us about John Trubee.
We need some,
Oh, you can give us some flesh, sure. But tell us what you know, or what you think about John Trubee, or what.
What I really think about John, I think
Yeah.
he is a sex beast. I think he would be wild and dead.
Really? Perverted?
Definitely kinky.
Oh, deviant, a deviant individual. How is his performance here at the hardware store? Does he put out?
At the hardware store, I had to yell at him the other day.
You did?
Yes.
Oh no, about what?
Believe it or not, he is better with men than with women, which sort of scared me for a while.
Oh, I know that. He's told me that.
But then I finally realized that he's hiding, that he holds back.
Uh-huh. So there's a smoldering embers
Yes,
just waiting to be
yes.
ignited by the right women.
Yes, I want to rip his clothes off.
Okay, and you are his boss?
No.
You are his fellow worker?
Well, I would like to be his, yes. I like to wear the cleats and have the whip.
This is Gilbert. This is the first in command. This is not actually public domain. I'm not on the street, so you could sue me for this. But...
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, young sir, and who are you? Michael, Gary's son? Does your father work here?
Yeah.
Yeah? What's he do? Glasses in the... You want it? Excuse me? All right, so your father works over there in the plumbing department?
Yeah.
Should we go and see him and film him? Or would he punch me in the face?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your father's pretty tough, huh?
Next time you take the crap, you come to the bathroom.
Hey, do something constructive.
Yeah, this is constructive. When the big hand gets down to the 6, that's when I'm free, okay? That's what I'm waiting for. That's what you're killing time for. When the big hand gets down to the 6, I don't have to suffer anymore.
John secretly lusts for this woman. John, what have you learned here at the hardware store? What
Kill everybody. That's my philosophy in life. Kill everybody.
customers and fellow employees alike?
Nothing to do with customers. We like to trick them.
Is he going to punch out now? Is that what he's doing? Okay. We're punching out with John Trubee. This is an exciting moment.
Yeah.
There he is, John Trubee, about to be released from his work.
You like this, John?
No, it's embarrassing. Just a friend. He's nobody special. He's just
I'm rapid.
Does he go home with you too?
I'm visiting from Massachusetts, so I
Life
get
is
to.
so boring that he has to come here for excitement. Can you imagine how bad that is?
That's why you're doing weird things, huh?
I'm doing weird things. This is John Trubee. All right, are you ready? Are you done?
Well,
Are you through?
the most important thing has not occurred yet.
Oh, yeah.
What is the most? Oh, the paycheck.
Getting your paycheck. Getting your paycheck. That's how much it's for. That's how much it's for.
I can't.
You see that?
No.
Are you
No,
blind?
no. Well, there's a problem. It's focus. Never mind.
You can charge for that.
A paper clip, that's mine. Good night.
And I will vote for you.
Good night, Carol.
It was my thing.
Nice meeting you. I'm Bob. Take care.
Good night, John.
Good night.
John Trubee cashing his weekly paycheck from the hardware store. This provides him an opportunity to make more music as he spends all he's got on music-related activities, abstaining from eating and the basic necessities of life, such as clothing and drugs, so that he can put it all into music making. He's my hero. Can we talk here?
Yeah, what do you want to know?
Well, I'm trying to think of where we left off. Left off talking about Gloopnox and the Stick People.
That's right.
Right. And that carried on through Lawrenceville Prep, and following Lawrenceville Prep, I guess we go from there. Following Lawrenceville Prep, didn't you take a year off and work in some menial job before you went on to Boston, or am I
I
wrong?
worked at Jack and Jill food store. It was called Jack and Jill. I was a cashier there. That light is awfully bright and obnoxious.
Is it? Wait a minute.
No,
That's all right. Lie down. Okay, I can raise it a little bit.
Yeah, and I was a cashier there, and it was very difficult to go from school all your life to
Sorry about the
being
light.
behind a cash register 8 hours a day waiting on the public. And it was a very disturbing and depressing experience, but I did that for about a half year and realized that I'd probably be spending the rest of my life in shitty dead-end jobs because because the only thing that I really want to do is create music, and it's virtually impossible to make money doing that. But I like to do it anyway. So ha ha ha. Ha ha me. So I have to condition myself to bear it. So anyway, I worked at Jack and Jill's store for 6 months, and then
Is it true about them going up the hill and all?
They never went up the hill when I was there, but I heard rumors that afterwards they would go to the the groovy teenage orgy and have sexual intercourse, and shoot up drugs, and shoot up heroin, and then fuck. But of course, I was never around for that because I wasn't good enough to do that. But then after that, in spring of '66, spring of '76, I went to Mercer County Community College and majored in media, studied journalism. I took a journalism course, and since I was in the journalism course, they stuck us on the student paper and made us write for the paper. And I had a little fun with that, and that was pretty non-eventful. That summer, I just hung around home, practiced my guitar, didn't see too many friends, and just practiced my guitar in the basement, because that's the center of my life, because nothing else matters to me, I'd be happy if you put me in a cell and let me play guitar all the time. I just love to do that, I don't like to do anything else really. It's stuff normal people do. It's bullshit.